Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Cruz.
This is Dan
This
Stone.
is Dexter from The Offspring.
Nathan
This
East.
is Sebastian Younger.
This is David
This
Labb.
is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick
I'm
Gillette.
Christopher
This is
Knopf.
Dr. Bob Greenberg.
I'm Laird Hamilton.
This is Jonathan Sabat, Director of the Beister Center for Psychiatric Genomics at UC San Diego, and you're listening to The Break It Down Show.
And now, The Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Hey, this is Pete A. Turner from The Break It Down Show, and you're listening to The Break It Down Show.
And this is Scott Huesing on the tricentennial episode of the Break It Down Show, about ready to interview Pete Turner and break him down.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We have the episode up today, or yesterday was 300, so this is it. We've turned the corner. I mean, you know, like we like the round number of 300 to be like a starting point, but it's really the end.
Yeah.
You know, it's the 10. So
I was thinking for the 300th episode, why didn't you have Gerard Butler on?
Or Gerard Depardieu. All the Gerards.
Yeah, or maybe, we should have called Stephen Pressfield.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I would love to get Stephen Pressfield on the show.
Let's get him out. Well, Stephen, if you're listening to this episode, I know I've sent you a copy of my book, probably buried on your desk, but we'll re-engage with that guy. That'd be great.
That's a good reason.
He's a Marine, too. I don't think a lot of people realize the guy that wrote Legend of Bagger Vance and 300 is a Marine.
I love the fact that in the book Gates of Fire, how they have special operators in there, and they go in and they damn near do it. Now, who knows historically, like if that is accurate, because we only have really one guy's tale. Yeah. But why wouldn't there be special operators trying to go get the top guy?
It really is. Both of us are military guys, but I was doing a lot of stuff talking about Independence Day and veterans and how like they're all connected between Veterans Day, Memorial Day, and Independence. And like guys that fight, willing to stand up and defend a cause and pick up a weapon and attack, and how war is timeless, and all of these themes, and it may just be different perspectives and different lenses you look at it through, but all those people were there, and all those components of battle, we just see it differently now because of the technology, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
I get asked a lot, like, aren't you afraid to go onto the battlefield? But the thing is by the time we're taking that step, whether you're 2,500 years ago standing in a line, or you're guys like us that dismount and hop out of a truck, that decision was made a long time ago. Like that fear, you're aware of the danger, you're alert, but for guys like us, it's not a consideration, and that really is the line of embarkation for somebody who's not a military, not a warrior.
Yeah.
Even the warriors, even people who are heroes in the military who aren't quote unquote warriors, because there are a different class of people. They don't have that thing where, like, I don't even consider the fear or the danger. Like, my job is to go out, and I'll be damned if I'm going to let somebody else who's not as prepared as I am go in my place to save my own neck. Like,
so do you think most, or the average American or anyone that's never been in the military, do you think they understand what it's like to train for weeks and months and sometimes years to get that opportunity to, like, play in the big game?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
They're always talking about how we need to bring the troops home and draw down from Europe, and blah, blah, blah. But guys that are in the military, and women, they don't want to be sitting on the bench, man. They want to be downrange, whether they're training or on ships afloat and in their submarines sneaking around the coast of, wherever and doing what they do, because that's our tax dollars at work, and they love it. That's what they do for a living. That's hard to use an analogy. I don't know if you could, what analogy in corporate America you could use for that? Like maybe studying in law school for 6 years and then never being able to try a case.
Totally. So, I remember there was a general in Iraq, maybe 2004 time frame, maybe early 2005. But he was like the guy in charge of force protection. He's like, the number one priority here is force protection. Well, fuck, that's easy. Go to Fort Riley, everybody, right now, and just hole up right there and go live in hooches in a cornfield.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't make any fucking sense. The number one priority, and that's one of our problems, is find the bad guys, close with them, and kill them, and then try to help Iraq figure out what's next.
And that guy's probably never, tasted the flavor of combat. And I'm not saying that to glamorize it, because there is nothing glamorous about combat and seeing that intensity. But imagine being that guy, that general, that he's in it for 20, 30 years and he never gets to play the game.
Yeah.
That's tough. And
it's really tough.
For guys that have a lot of testosterone flowing through their veins, to never be able to do that, to leave the military without that badge of distinction. For the Marine Corps, it's the combat action ribbon.
Sure.
For the Army, it's the combat infantry badge, or what's the new one they have?
The combat action badge.
The combat action badge, right. So when you got that, when you're sporting that, that's bragging rights.
Right.
They know you've been to the show in one way, shape, or form. It doesn't mean you're kicking doors in Fallujah or Ramadi or Baghdad, but you've been there. You've been in the.
Yeah, you got to go to the party.
That's like our Super Bowl ring.
Yeah, it really is.
So,
yeah.
If Mark Pattison's listening, that's our Super Bowl ring.
What's up, Mark?
Yeah. Hey, Mark.
Yeah, that whole thing of getting
Matt.
into the big game.
Matt, if you're
oh man, that is hilarious. He called the host of a show Matt the entire time. Mark was good enough
on his show.
Yeah,
not on this show.
So true confession. I did his rewind episode with him, and he got it in his brain that I went to Croatia instead of Bosnia, and it's a nit. Who's going to pick that? I didn't. I'm like, I'm just going to let him have it. But he keeps saying it, and I'm like, oh man, I should have dug him out of the hole early. But now he's like, he's committed. I'm like, I've been to Croatia, but I was deployed to Bosnia. So I'm like, shit, I should have done it.
Well, and then the best too was like I signed his book, Matt.
Yeah,
so it's like
it's
idiot. It's classic. So
getting into the Super Bowl though, that is a big thing, and it goes again back to when you do all that pre-deployment nonsense, and especially as a commander, all the stuff that you have to manage and make sure, like, dumb fuck, is it in your right pocket like I told you to? Because one of the things the audience doesn't know is all of your papers, should the worst thing happen, have to be in certain places. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's in your right breast pocket, which is typically where I always had it. But all those things that you have to have ready to go has to be there. And that's just one of a small thing. You give a code word for if you get snatched up and Delta Force comes and rescues you, they want to make sure you're you. And so you have to, maybe with your jaw busted and your eyes swollen shut, be able to remember and repeat this phrase. All this stuff happens before you deploy. So all my friends and all the people out there are like, I'd be awesome in combat. Would you? Because you got to go do all this stuff in advance, and you get so sick of being home and waiting and doing the same dumb training, even if it's vital. You're like, just get me to the fucking game.
That doesn't even include all of the important, I don't even call it minutia, that you have to do to make sure your family's taken care of before you leave.
Yeah.
I mean, and the pressure that's on them, and you got kids, and you've been married, and you understand all the wills and powers of attorney.
Yeah.
And here's the password to the account, and then you have to sever that and hope your bank account isn't drained when you come home, or the bills are paid. Yeah,
you're still married when you come home.
Because there's
guys that get POAs and get divorces when they show up. Yeah,
that happens, and sometimes you show up from a deployment, and the wife is there and the girlfriend.
Whoops.
That's happened.
Yeah,
True
I'm
story. Yeah.
Positive.
That's awkward.
Yeah. So to think that you can step out and do that, you have to understand all the other things that you have to do. And then how much is combat? And I mean actual, like, bullets are flying combat. How little of that has to do with ego and self.
Yeah.
It's shocking for people to hear that. Like, it's not in any way about me or how many people did I engage. Like, that is not even, no one's got time for that.
No.
There's too much going on that actually matters,
So on the tricentennial of the Break It Down show, let's talk about the past 300 shows a little bit. I mean, that's a lot of podcasts for anyone. I mean, that is a ton of podcasts.
Yeah.
Talk about the last 300 pods, why you started this, how long it's been, how long it took you to lay down 300 pods, and how you've gotten to this point.
So John and I were handymen, and I'm not handy at all, but I'm good at dealing with customers' needs. So I would show up, and there would be like a wife who was like, oh, we're moving. Like, I want you to worry about something else besides this stuff getting moved. Is it all going to fit in the truck? Absolutely. Because it is. And that's the military thing. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. Everything's going to fit in this truck. I want you to worry about something else because this is done. This couch that's on the street, it will be in your house. If I got to take out a window, it's going to go in, and that's what we did for a long time. And at some point we had to do something else. So we had to start doing, and we did a radio show at the time, just a little small community radio thing, but we were kind of getting too big for that. Not that those guys aren't great, but what we wanted to do and where we were going, it was time to move on. So that was the impetus for this, because we wanted to get guests. We wanted to be able to swear and, stuff like that. We wanted a path to some revenue, but we had no idea what we were doing. And the first shows are fine, but they're not anywhere near the quality of what we do now.
Was it challenging at first, like struggling to get people to want to do your show when you don't have like A-list interview, bank account? How do you get people to want to come on the show?
It's a great question. And not everybody had to be super famous, but we lucked into some incredible people early on, partly because, spy skills. And I just ask, like, hey, you're doing something interesting here. Would you talk about it? And then they go, yeah, for sure. And then we had enough interesting and famous people in our network, and not any more than anybody else has, but just we had people that had done incredible things or were doing still. And so we just continue to build. And then I got really good at asking, and I would just, it's something like, if I was to write you an email, and I've written emails probably with you on
They're
there.
always misspelled, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I can't spell at all. And I'm positive that my brain is broken in that way. But there is a lot of kindness and there's a lot of concern. And so I would, I said, do me the honor of, I'm giving you an invite. If you'll do me the honor of coming on the show, here's what I'm going to give to you. I'm going to make it easy on you. I'm going to show up. Oh, and look at your peers that have been on the show. And then when I put people out there that are incredible people, and these are your peers, it's hard for people to say no to that, because
I'd have to say, when you invited me on, I was absolutely honored. I'm a totally non-famous person, and to be affiliated with the show, and then to come back on and co-host with you, and just build this network, and just not only just the veterans, but all the other amazing people that you bring into the show. I think it's really a testament to who you are. I say that, one, as a compliment, but as your friend, that I just love the message. And I think that I communicated that early on when you and Mark came out here to my ranch, and I said, I just love the message. I love the authenticity of it all, and that's the thing you get with a show, and I think it's totally cool. So who out of the list would you say is like the most famous person that's been on Break It Down?
So, yeah, I thought a lot about this, and it's the person that requires the least amount of context to explain who they are and what they do. Because like if I said we had Sting on, I wouldn't have to say From the Police. Mm-hmm. But as bandmates, if I say Andy Summers or Stuart Copeland, they have to say, From the Police. And they're like, oh, yeah, oh, wow, right? So I don't think we've had a person yet who requires no contextual information. So the name recognition, I don't think we've hit that person. And even like with Jay Moore, like, you've seen him. He was in Jerry Maguire, or he does comedy, or he was in Silent.
Oh, like, yeah, that guy.
Yeah. So you need that contextual piece. But
I think it's relative too. Wouldn't you agree that your fame or recognition is relative to the field you're in? Like
right.
Jay's very in any stand-up, improv, comedy club. If you drop Jay's name, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, he's hilarious."
Right.
But if you're in, I don't know, the Temecula dirt farmer industry and authors, people still would know who I am. But then you've got people like Michelle Rigby-Assad in that community.
Sure. And
she's lumped in with me now as an author, but I think it's relative to the community.
Yeah, there's a contextual requirement for sure. But like if I required no context, no group, like Sebastian Younger certainly is very, very well known.
Yeah.
And again, if you don't know him, then I can say he made Restrepo or he wrote Perfect Storm. Oh, shit. Oh, wow. And then it becomes like a bigger deal. Guys that have played with world famous musicians, you just don't. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk tomorrow to J.R. Robinson, and he's played drums on everything. He played on all of like the really early Michael Jackson stuff, some stuff on Thriller.
Guys that get no credit either.
Right.
Yeah.
And,
outside of, the king of pop.
Right.
But in the drummer community, they'd be like, boom.
Everybody knows. We've had Nathan East on. He stands next to or Eric Clapton. And when he's not standing next to Eric Clapton, he's standing next to Babyface or Phil Collins or, Chick Corea. And these guys will send – and you just got back from private plane flying to Sardinia. That's what Nathan East does. Like if Chick Corea is like, hey, you've got 5 open dates, I want them, and I'm in Jakarta, Nathan's job is to say yes and show up with his bass.
Yeah.
And so the plane shows up. So these guys are famous enough in their community that they get elite treatment.
So famous guests are good to build the resume for the show, but who's been the most fun to interview? So first, who's been the most fun? I think this is a good drill. Who's the most fun? Rapid fire.
The most fun. Well, when you say that, it's always Jay. Jay's hilarious. And he's so easy. Like when he shows up, he's ready and the light switches on and you just nudge and he goes. And I'm sure I'm forgetting 25 other shows that are.
Yeah, I don't say this to pin anyone down like they weren't the most favorite guest or most fun, but some people are easier to interview.
Yeah,
and I think it probably has to do with which field they come from, because you've had guys with these 30-pound brains and PhDs, multiples, and then you've got storytellers and writers and comedians, and so having been a guy that's done hundreds of interviews, sometimes the interviewer, it's tough, man, when they are not dialed in, and you really struggle to carry the show as a guest. So isn't that interesting when that turns? I mean, what's an example of that?
So there's a certain time. So today I did an interview, and I'll even say it was the author that was on that I talked to. She wrote a book. It's a children's book, and she was giving me the standard interview thing, and she would take a long time. And we got about halfway, and I'm like, I just can't. This interview is not what she needs. And I already told her, like, we're not going to talk about the normal stuff. We're going to get off the beaten path. And so I stopped, and I said, I'm going to do more talking, and we're going to go in a different direction now. And I made it okay for her to do it, and the interview got significantly better. So the one thing I've learned throughout is that control, to stop, to know, to say, look, it's not rude for me to interrupt you. You as an author need me to, because I'm going to take you to that place. You're doing your job. I'm not doing mine. So like the other day we had on Chris Endrindle. He's a PhD, got his degree in U2, the form and style. And we got him lit up. John and I got him going. And he was arms swinging, and my spy techniques going, okay, he's excited. Once your hands are above your heart and talking, it's hard to be like sedate by, and I'm waving my hands around right now. That's when you shut up. That's when you do the Vin Scully. And you just sit back, and that guy you let talk because he is in the zone. So you have to find that spot. That's the thing that you're always working on as an interviewer or conversationalist.
Yeah, that's where the art meets science and vice versa. I think it's definitely a skill. I think that kind of leads in. I had a question too. I want to ask you, this being a pretty huge milestone for the show, is there's a lot of people that have podcasts now, and you're a successful podcaster. And we as veterans, and I think is what we're doing here, trying to help other artists and veteran artists. What advice do you give those guys who are just starting out?
Well, first off, don't let your ego get in the way. You're going to suck at first, because what you'll do 300 shows later is significantly better than what you do now. It's like, it's swimming. You don't get in the water and start doing butterfly. It just doesn't happen that way. So you have to build your stuff in the gym. You got to do the work. So anybody who's in this field, what is unique about what you're doing? And it's okay not to know, but start right there. What's unique, and then can you get in the gym as often as possible? Like going back to your first really opening thing, it was, yes, we started and we were doing one show a week, and sometimes we didn't. Sometimes we go on hiatus because we hadn't figured it out. But then in the fall of last year, 2017, I was like, we got to do way more shows, because Joe Rogan's doing 3 hours plus every day.
Wow.
And so that's what the pros are doing. Adam Carolla's doing 30 hours of content himself every week. So if that's what the pros are doing, we've got to get in the woodshed and do a whole lot more work. So I started doing 2 a week a long time ago, but then I'm like, I'm going to start doing 3 a week. And it turned into, I'm like, fuck it, I'm just going to do 4. And then I have another show that I do. So really I put up 5 shows a week at a minimum. Sometimes there's a 6th show, but that made a difference. That accelerated everything, gave more people more access, more times to ring the bell so people can know that we're out there. So if someone's going to do it, you don't start there, but you take this path and you start. Like, can you put one a week out?
Yeah.
Great.
Because this show, for Break It Down show, is, I think the content is defined by the guests you have on, and then your other podcast, Popping the Bubble, is a totally different, really, in my language, like different genre almost of, or different medium, different type of guests that you have on there, a little more introspective. I don't think I rate to be on that show because I went to Illinois State. I cannot compete in that arena. But are you constantly thinking like that as a producer and as an artist? Hey, what do I have next? I'm always thinking of the next project. Like, I want to write this. I want to write that. I want to tell this story. I want to interview this guy. So how do you manage that?
I've had to learn how to do this too. Like, I want to do everything, and I can't. And I've had to accept that. So, like, the album fight concept took a long time to get off the ground. Like, saying you're going to start a podcast and actually making a good podcast show up are two totally different things. So you have to know what it takes to get that off. So it's like, I'm not going to build a whole unique podcast. I'm just going to do it within the Break It Down show thing. And if I need to break it off later on, that show will let me know. It'll be like, yeah, you need to do more of these, and then it'll become a thing. To manage all these different shows, it's a lot to manage too.
Yeah,
it's a lot. So, and then those album fights take so much time to create. We've got to study the albums. I've got to put 3 voices together, bring in outside. That's a lot. So being able to say no to things that I wanted to, there's all kinds of podcasts. We talked about a funny podcast today that would be absolutely a riot, but I can't take on that project, and then unless someone's paying enough. So like, it was really easy to say, let's do a show about this, let's do a show about that. But then you realize no one's paying for that. So if someone wants to pay, I'm all about it, and I will help you make a badass podcast, and I will put all of my lessons to work to take where you're at and then elevate you and get you going.
Yeah. We can't talk about that potential podcast because it may be an untapped market.
That's
we don't
right.
want to share with anybody else. So it's still TS, SCI right now.
That's right. Got to be read on. You're not. You have no need to know.
So top 3 things that every podcaster has to have to be successful.
The top 3 things, you have to not worry about monetizing, because you'll know when you need to monetize because the money will start showing up. You have to have the ability to go out and ask people and ask them again. We talked about today, like, people don't answer their phones. They don't respond to email. They don't respond to tweets. So you don't get there by asking once, taking offense, and never coming back. You get there by saying, it's really important to me that we do this. I really need to tell this story. So if you don't have that, add that to your game, because that will help you get guests that will blow your mind. Like for John and I, it's no longer a surprise to get anybody. Ron Howard wouldn't be a surprise. It would just be a shock, and I can't believe we did it. But it's when we sit across from him, it'll be like, yeah, of course, we know how to do this now. That would be the second thing. And the third thing is just understanding that it's a lot of work. If you want to do I don't want to say a bullshit little podcast, but if you want to do a bullshit little podcast where you jam a USB mic into your laptop and sit there and talk with your friends, God bless. I'm not talking about that. If you want to do something that people want to give you money for, then it's like anything else.
Yeah.
You got to get in and you got to swing a hammer, and that hammer's heavy.
It's got to be pro.
Yeah, you got to be pro.
And you got to do the work. I think that that is something that across the board, when you leave the military, a lot of people will transition and want to do a federal job, or they want to get in the private sector. But there's so many people that are so afraid to branch out on their own and start their own company, really do what they're passionate about. And it's counterintuitive to me, because everything we do as Marines and as guys in the military is mission-oriented. You set the mission, you do the planning, you make arrangements, and you have to, but the worst part is the S in BAMSIS is like supervise. You got to supervise yourself. So you have to do the work, and you have to limit all those distractions. And I'll harken back to Pressfield, who wrote, The War of Art, which is a great book for any artist who wants to understand that you got to eliminate all of these distractions in your life and just do the work. Books don't write themselves. Podcasts don't record themselves or edit themselves. That takes a lot of time and energy. Yeah. And sometimes when you're surrounded by fellow veterans or even your family, that's a whole new arena. How is that explaining that to your friends and stuff to really understand, like, nope, this is what I do for a living now?
Yeah. Well, there's always questions. And then there's also, this doesn't happen so much in the service, but when you create something, as an author, you're in Chicago, you should be killing. Everybody should be like, our boy Scott, look at this. At Illinois State, they should have your book in the bookstore. This is one of our guys. But that ain't the case. That's not how it works. So in my hometown, we're doing better, but I've worked hard to go, hey, pay attention. This is incredible stuff. Someone from your town, one, I interview people from our town all the time because they're doing incredible things. And two, we're putting people up that have one of our artists that we had on has won a Tony, an Emmy, and a Grammy. And she's in the Songwriter Hall of Fame. Someone from your little town did that. Any town, any city, if you've interviewed all these people, they should all be like, well, shit, why are you listening to AM radio on the way in and get mad about Donald Trump when your boy has putting out this great stuff?
Attention, Benicia. Yeah, tune into the Break It Down show now. Over. Yeah, get it on, get it out. Mayor of Benicia, if you're listening, you need to be on the Break It Down show.
Elizabeth Patterson, yeah. But
Elizabeth Patterson.
That's her name.
You were on notice, Liz.
I used to be her county point person for the walking committee for the county for our little hometown. It's all about
maybe
the service.
You should run for like the board of Benicia as like an adjunct. Member to get. But I know you'd think it's like, hey, I'm so glad the city of Benicia has so many successful podcasters and guys out there crushing it, making their town. And we're also shouting out to Benicia. Not that I'm from there, but yeah, man, get on board, Benicia. Get on the Pete Turner train.
John is from Guam. There are only so many Chamorros out there. And we literally, in the history of the show, and I'd be surprised if this was any different, but I believe the total spins plays from Guam, the island, is like 23. We're basically 5 years in now.
It's a mind blower.
They should be all about it. All about it.
I know. So since we're throwing people under the bus, and I'm not throwing Chicago under the bus, but so I live down here in Southern California, wine country in Temecula. You'd think that hometown boy made good, best-selling author. You think the Barnes & Noble who buys my book would have asked me to the store by now. Yeah. Like, hey, would you come in? And nope. Won't even respond.
Yeah. Why wouldn't every winery...
To an email. But other Barnes & Nobles have been so great.
Sure.
And we've done stuff. But it's kind of a mind blower, huh?
Yeah. And to be fair to all the Chamorro folks out there, the ones that don't live on Guam, they're great. Because John's got like 150 first cousins. Like their family is enormous. So it's his people do support. But it's funny that the island, where like this is an incredible thing that we've built here. I mean, we've got a huge audience in Japan. Not close to Guam, but not that far. Yeah. So in Japan, we're big in Japan. All right. There's Australia. There's New Zealand. Somehow we've got this line from Sweden, Denmark, Germany, France. They love us.
So is there any ambition to do
this episode of the Break It Down Show is brought to you by Lions Rock Productions. That's us. We publish, evaluate, and develop podcasts just like this one, consult others to build their own, and create associated content and content marketing strategies.
So if you're launching or expanding your social media presence, your business, or your personal brand, or if you just want to take your media presence to the next level,
reach out to us on Twitter
at Pete Turner
or at JohnLG69
at the Break It Down Show.
There's 1,000 ways to get a hold of us.
Have you been on the Surfliner?
Now enjoy the show.
I have. I'm a big fan of the train, but it's so expensive and antiquated, and it's like... a parochial mode of transportation, and they don't yeah, you're right. They don't get it, but what a great spot, huh?
Yeah, I mean, if I was to say, hey, let's go check out a Padres game and get some tacos, but let's take the Surfliner, you wouldn't say no necessarily, But if they had the ability to say, this is really, there's not a low-end way to travel. You're not trying to save money, but you're just trying to get, you don't have to drive. We can sit, we can chill out, we can have beers on the way down.
And there's no TSA involved.
Right, yeah, and you just hop on, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
But they don't, or we can go to, when we do our thing to Santa Barbara, we can literally take the train. We should be taking the train. Amtrak should be like, yeah, absolutely. Listen, go get on, go ride, and we're glad. And that would be the way to do it. Yeah. And we could talk it up.
I think most people who are listening to the show, when you made the reference to tacos at a Padres game, they're like, who sells tacos at a baseball game? Yes, Petco Park.
Petco.
San Diego.
Yeah, absolutely.
Huge down here. Great tacos, too.
Even the spirit of New Orleans. I mean, Willie Nelson sang about it. That's why people know what it is. But Chicago to New Orleans?
Yep.
Oh, okay. If you can't make money off the story that we tell, if you and I did that, we went from hometown, grabbed a couple of hometown shows, and then hopped on the Spirit and went south, and then handed them 20 hours of content, it's on them to be able to sell that. And if they can't, why are they in the train business?
There it is, folks. Another great idea blossoming right in front of us, of that multitude of things, of great ideas we always come up with.
So I always want to do stuff. I would love to do that. I would love to be in name a country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ron Howard would be awesome to have on the show. Who's been on your docket that you've been dying to get on that hasn't come on, and then who are like the top 5 people you want to get on in the near future for the next 100 episodes?
So we've not managed to do it yet, but it's going to happen. And of course, I believe it's going to happen, but Danny Trejo has no idea. But his people have said yes. They need a project for him to do a press junk for, and then we'll get him. Will we actually get him? I'm not in control of that, but I'm doing everything I can to have Danny Trejo. And if you say his name, I'm going to think that you don't require any other context. Maybe you have to say he played Machete or he's the scary Mexican in every movie. But that's going to happen at some point, and it hasn't happened yet, and I've been working hard to make it happen. So, and Rob Riggle. Rob said yes. His people have been Rob Riggle's people. They're doing what they do. But I know at some point it's inevitable. He doesn't realize it, and he and I have talked. And when I do talk, I'm like, all right, listen, I've been patient. I work with your people. You see everybody else here in the room. We all know each other. So you let me know when you've got time.
Yeah, and we all know guys that know Rob.
Right.
And,
right.
And there's, for the record, too, he's got his own podcast.
Sure, yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, he's got a ton of content, too. And there's a guy that loves to talk, and he's hilarious. And he's I don't know. I mean, I don't know Rob personally, but, we met briefly at his golf tournament for Semper Fi Fun last year, and Nate Boyer was there and a couple others. But he strikes me as the guy who's as hilarious and as authentic in person as he is on the big screen. And,
sure.
He drives a pickup truck. He's a Marine. Yeah, so yeah, he'd be a great one.
Yeah, and we'll get him. I'm confident of that. I'm not in a hurry. When I get Tom Hanks, that's going to be Tom going, yeah, of course, I've been waiting. That's because that's how you have to approach any kind of thing in the spy world. Like, you can't be desperate to have the person on. I can press, but I need to do it in a way that it makes sense. Like, I've been out with
a turnoff, huh?
Right? Yeah. Like, I don't Tom Hanks to be on the show. I want that to happen, but I want him to have value in it too. To him to say, yeah, of course, this fits my charter of doing things for veterans, because clearly that's important to him. When it comes to those things. Those are people. So Tom Hanks for sure would be on the list. Ron Howard for sure is on the list. I would like John Williams, the guy that does the music part. I'd like to get a president. I'm not sure who that'll be. The closest we are is, we're friends with. We might do a podcast with Roger Clinton if we can all get together. And it's hard. You can't rush it. So if that happens, clearly I'll be sitting across from Bill and Hillary at some point. So that's an interesting.
How do you think that's going to take the show? So is that a break it down show to delve into the politics of it?
Yeah, the thing Roger and I figured out,
because what politicians love to talk about.
Sure, yeah, politics. They want to talk about and I'm not afraid to talk about issues. I've built up a skin for that I think I can give my own let me just say that. So Sebastian Junger gave us a tasking, and I think I've kind of put it into a frame that makes sense. We're polarizing as a nation. People want to go this way, that way, and they were worried about which team they're on than being on the team. And so he's like, you guys need to get in the middle and rally people. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. That's the scary place. We're home now. We're not at that war. The war is here at home. How do we protect ourselves? Because we all know what happens. The inevitable when these fight. People talk about like the second civil. That's cute, but as people that have carried guns and throw down rounds and have rounds come back, nobody wants that. So our job is to go to the scary place in between and gather people. And you don't start that conversation by calling people idiots. No. And it's hard. That's scary. Yeah. You have to give up. Freedom isn't me getting what I want. Freedom is you being able to do what you need to do and me being able to go, yeah, I totally disagree with your racist, whatever sexist beliefs, but you're also entitled to that. You're entitled to be afraid that immigration is going to harm you and your family. You're entitled to that. You're absolutely, as a legitimate concern.
Yeah. And when I'm on interview, I try to stay very apolitical. I don't write a lot about it. I mean, I do some op-ed stuff, but it's usually very apolitical because as we sit here the day after Independence Day, I think the word patriotism is so important. That's what I am hearing from you is being a patriot, and the true definition, whichever dictionary you look in, is that love of one's country. And for guys like me and you that have picked up a rifle, that have defended that way of life, the things that we enjoyed, to be able to sit here, hang out by the pool and, drink wine or do whatever and really enjoy that. It has a different meaning to us, but I think the meaning is not a definition more than it is, at least for me, an emotion.
Yeah.
When people say patriotism, it is an emotion that I feel an obligation to really unite people and really respect the fact that whether you're a Democrat or Republican or independent or whatever it is, that you have value because you're an American.
Yeah.
And that's where we need to get back to. And it shouldn't take parking a couple of airplanes into high rises to do that.
Right.
That's what I'm deathly afraid of.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely.
I just got chills even saying that because it's a horrific thought to think about that, but it vastly unified this nation that we're all members of.
Right.
And to think that it would take something like that it's frightening.
If you don't like Donald Trump, I can understand that. He's an odious person. If you love Donald Trump, I can understand that because he's like, look, we don't have to bow down to anybody. We can get better business. It's the businessman saying, I can get you better business deals. I can get that.
Yeah.
He can say the economy, look, right now, legitimately, our nation is as wealthy and as successful as any nation ever, more so than any of them ever. And yet more than half of us are pissed. Like, well, I don't know what to do. And why is patriotism bad now? There's so many people that are. So this is Sebastian's tasking to us, is to go help us figure this out because we're not going to do it ourselves. So that's a big tasking.
Yeah.
And it's scary because you have to expose yourself to a lot of people and a lot of hate.
Well, I think it'll be a neat venture to start bringing some of those guests into the show.
Yeah.
And with hope, not being a course of action by any means, is something we can strive for, that by hearing those voices and having that unification, it's going to be something in a different forum than seeing it on mainstream media where it's all sound bites and it's all about the campaign or all about the party and not about the people, because it's not about politics or policy or anything. It's about people.
Yeah.
And we've tended to stray from that, and that saddens me as a guy that has fought for this country on so many occasions. And people often ask, and they've asked you this too, we've had this discussion, is, do you ever feel bad that, Iraq is still in a state of, turmoil, or we're still fighting Afghanistan? No, we don't ever sit around and go, oh, woe is me, all the blood we spilled and treasure we've spent. What we want is stability, and we want our country to continue to project what made us so great. I think that's what the hope really is.
And I think we also want to try to, there's a quote on the wall in the Capitol building and I'm going to do my best to get it right. I'm actually not going to quote it because I can't remember exactly, but basically it's wherever a man isn't free, you can't be free. And it's not my freedom. It's how you define freedom. And if your freedom is Sharia law and stability for your family, then okay, cool. How do we get you out from oppression? And that's the Green Berets, like freeing the oppressed. That's not a bad mission.
No.
And if there's a great place to do it, it's America. We spend a lot on the military, but that also enables all these other countries to not have to. Like Britain doesn't have an air force or a navy anymore. We're the Navy, and that allows all those guys to do other things and not be worried about what Germany's doing. Because how long has Europe been stable? Only since we've been the boss.
Yeah,
and that'll change if we pull back. And then who's going to do it? Russia? China?
It's a lot of American hubris, too, to think that what we've built over just this meager 250 years is going to be around for another 250 years. There was another empire that thought that. They were called the Romans.
Yeah.
They lasted 500 years.
Yeah.
And it's through that mindset and the cockiness or hubris or whatever you want to call it that is ultimately the demise of any great superpower. You call it an empire, you call it a superpower. Sure. I don't care what definition you want to color it, but we have to always be moving forward and being progressive. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck in these ruts, like so many of the countries you and I have fought in.
Oh, for sure.
And they may have been around culturally longer than us, like 5,000 years in the Middle East, but they're not progressing. They're not moving forward. They're not leading the world. That's why all the bumper stickers on our trucks say America #1. It's not a pun, man. We are #1. There's no mistake in that. I don't make any apologies for that either. And it's because of everybody. It's because of the people in this country.
I was talking to somebody and we were reflecting. They were so negative about where things are right now. And I'm like, you have to understand, you're looking right now and you're living in fear. You would tell yourself not to live in fear in your day-to-day life, your personal life. Don't live in fear, right? That's a common thing to hear. But you're living in fear in your social life, in your political life. Look back 20 years. Is the world better? Is the nation better? Okay, maybe you're not sure. Fair. Okay, fine. You go back 40 years. Tell me the world and the nation is not a better place. And the further you go back, the clearer it becomes. You want to go back 100 years and compare and contrast? No, you don't. So quit being so hard on ourselves. We're not going backwards. We're doing what we do. We slowly evolve and we add things in like gay marriage. That's an over topic. If we allowed it, abortion would be over. Like it's settled. Let's stop focusing on something that was damn near 50 years ago. Let's move forward and stop being so afraid of what could happen or might happen. And let's get to know each other. Because I know this. Nobody, and this is true everywhere you go, nobody likes cancer. Everybody loves their kids. Everybody wants to make sure their kids are safer and better off than they were. And we're willing to work desperately hard to do it. And institutions will help a lot of people. But if we don't collect the people outside of that help, then they're going to be hurt. And nobody likes that. Show me a person that wants people to be hurt.
ISIS.
I bet they love their kids, and I bet they hate cancer.
It's that's a tough thing too. Is people don't often see that. Turn the lens around and see it from someone else's perspective. And I think I was talking about this on a show recently on Independence Day. I'm sure the British thought this wild band of patriots hiding in the bushes, taking crack shots at British officers, were also called insurgents.
Right.
250 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's not too far off the narrative to think that we were viewed in that way.
You look at the Battle of New Orleans when you had Andy Jackson out there with his guys, and they dug in battlements in these palm trees. And what that did, they fought the greatest military ever at that point. They fought the Brits, and they tried to do a frontal assault on an entrenched with palm trees. And here's what happens when you shoot palm trees with that kind of round. It goes in, it gets caught, and that wood becomes an iron-wood hybrid. And it just gets harder and harder because you're not just going to shoot your way through a piece of timber. And so it takes that kind of resolve to establish for the Brits to go, shit, this is a bad idea.
Yeah.
And they changed their doctrine forever on that. We don't do this anymore.
Well, I think, getting back to like the show and like having different people on, and that diversity is one thing that makes this show great. But it's, as we're talking about some politics in the nation, it's really what makes this country great too, and that diversity. And around the Independence Day, and we interview and hang out in circles of vets, is we often don't talk about those things because they're tough things to talk about, those dark periods in American history, like our Revolutionary War, where, I mean, that took 50,000 lives, upwards of 100,000 if you count for all the disease, that lack of medical care, and then our Civil War that claimed so many lives on one day. I mean, 5,000 at Antietam alone. I mean, these are dark periods, and when we, memorialize or we celebrate, we don't talk about those. We talk about World War I and the Greatest Generation and Vietnam and how we welcomed these guys back home and the current long war that we're in right now. But we never want to talk about those things because those were periods of our history where we were not unified. So as we move forward, I think that message, and I think that's something cool that you're doing in this show by thinking to the future about, bringing politicians in, bringing some people that can really have a voice, that have had a voice, and that really bring more flavor to the discussion. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I would love to be able to sit across, and I don't agree with the Clinton approach to things, but I can tolerate talking and I can understand, and I bet if I was sit across from them, they will have a greater respect and understanding for who I am, and I will certainly have that for them. I've sat across from people who are way more evil than them. I promise everybody out there, I have looked for the most evil people in the world when I'm deployed, and I try to make friends with those people. So if I can tolerate that, certainly I can tolerate talking to anybody I disagree with politically. And I don't hate Bill Clinton. I don't hate Hillary Clinton. I don't hate Edward Snowden. I don't hate Chelsea Manning. I don't hate any of those people.
You're an exception to the rule. You're absolutely an exception to the rule to have that type of mindset. That capacity is probably something so small in the human race. What do you think in your life developed you to have that type of mindset?
I don't know.
How early on, young Pete Turner?
I've always been a guy that can move between groups. I didn't need to belong to a certain group, but I also don't, and I don't know when I learned this, I don't begrudge the people that love like the 50s car look and they, their girl dresses up like, Rosie the Riveter and all that kind of stuff. I don't get it. That's not me. But I also understand that that's them. That's cool. I don't know when that happened. And it probably is born partly because of California, because we have such a mix here. But I guess you're right. My tolerance for understanding who people are allows me to I talked with Jay about this. Like, I'm a liminal traveler, so I can go into your reality. I don't got to agree with it. I can go into an Afghanistan dude's reality, and I can say, yeah, you have sex with boys, all right? And that's a super touchy topic. It's not my job to assess you. Like if I insult you, it might hurt my whole patrol, frankly. So it's not my job to stop that. It's a wrong. Okay, great. But I didn't take the path that you took to get to this point in time. Did you purposely pick an evil path? I couldn't say that. I couldn't say I would do anything different than that person would. Someone who lives under a rock, like Johnny Walker, who's barely surviving, you make choices you would never make in that situation. Because ethics change on the battlefield.
Sure.
I've literally been on a patrol where we kicked in a door on a place, and I'm on the patrol. I'm not in this role, but they were in there, and anybody alive in that house was not going to be alive for long until someone called all clear. That means if you're on the floor dying, you're still a threat. You got shot on the floor. And, that's just, it's graphic and it's hard and it's horrible, but not in that case. In that case, it's like, I don't know what you're going to do. As long as you're moving still, you're over. And then when the all clear is sounded, then we're glad to help everybody around. But that's not a reality in Racine, Wisconsin, ever,
So little Petey in the sandbox up in Benicia, California, he's like the unifier on the playground.
I guess so.
What's the earliest you thought about that, like looking back? You don't think of it at the time, but now as a podcaster that's done so much, when have you ever thought about that? Like, when did this start? When did I start doing sound effects?
For sure. For sure, high school was an area where I could leave town. I could go to other places. I could get along with people. It makes sense that was the case. And, in middle school, who knows what the hell they're doing? Everybody's awkward. So, but I always had friends like, I wasn't a jock, but I played sports all the time. I always had an interest in computers, so I could hang out with people that played computers. I didn't really hang out with the band kids at all, but that was mostly because I wasn't really a musician at all, and that's kind of a singular focus. But I could literally go down and play basketball with the guys who are way better than me because I knew how to play in that setting. No, I never really got to the point where I could reliably do that, but I could play with anybody that could, though, because I played hard defense. I got out of the way and I passed the ball. So,
well, you're a team player. You're a connector. I mean, you're one of those. Yeah, you're a connector. Yeah. I mean, that's a special segment again of. I think it's something we learn as we go, but I think it is. It takes a special person to be able to want to bring people together. I like to think I enjoy that is introducing people. We do it all the time.
Sure.
I mean, we're constantly playing hot potato with vets and other people you want to interview and stuff like that. It's gratifying. I don't know what it is about it, but it seems to be really. I want to
put. I know what it is. I want to enrich people's lives, and I think you need to know Hilliard guests. So I'm going to introduce you guys, and I'm going to do my best at creating planting a seed where you guys, even if you never do anything, you will both know that you are supposed to know each other. And maybe you don't have time, but I find benefit in trying to create that in others, and I trust that stuff comes back because people are like, hey, this was great. I never talked to that guy, but you wrote kind words about me. How many people get a kind email or a kind introduction?
That's a tough thing. That's a tough because we're so negative focused all the time. It is a real challenge to say something positive. Or just I offer, and it sounds kind of self-serving to say it, but I'll say it anyway because you're the one that started this whole true confession thing. Is I have to overtly think to myself, oh, that guy had me on his show or that guy did this for me. I need to reach out and just say hello.
Yeah.
And that sounds kind of shallow, but I think a lot of people don't do that in this day and age. They just make assumptions that when I send an email or I'll pick up the phone and I'll call someone and they're like, what do you want? I just want to say, hey.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? I just, was thinking about you, did this, that, or the other, and I just want to say, hey. And I'm not sending fucking Hallmark cards. Trust me, man. That ain't happening. That ain't my style either. But I think it's as a person that really enjoys that what we do now at this chapter of our life is to maintain those connections is really a challenge. I mean, 300 people to interview. Do you go back and keep in touch with all 300 and send them a note every now and then? How hard is that?
Yeah,
you're looking forward to do more.
Yeah, I mean, I always want people more, and actually, I've tried to triple down on that because I want you to feel like this is your show, and I want you to invite people. I've told you, book anybody you want, because if you think they're worth talking to, then fuck yeah. And I want there to be 25 people going, I have a show that we need to do, and I want to be overwhelmed with, great. Let's tell these stories.
Make me say no.
Yeah, make me say no. Make me stop telling having these incredible experiences. Yes, I don't make nearly enough money to do all that, but that's fine. I'll take that problem and this is one of my big things that I've learned as I've gotten older is if I was to ask you, when was the last time you felt just absolute all-consuming joy? You think about it. You don't have to answer, but if I said, when was the last time you were in a rage and pissed off? Which one's easier to find?
Oh, yeah.
Right? And it's like, what the fuck? I want to collect joy and give it out to people so that they're like, yeah, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I do too. And I reach a stage in my life where you're the same way. You're kind of comfortable in your level of coolness, as I like to say.
Yeah.
And this is kind of gay too, but I was conversing with someone on social media and they said something like they don't ever like to block people on social media. And I said, man, block the fuck out of them. I said, I've dealt with enough negativity in my life and enough badness that I don't think twice because I just don't want to be surrounded by it, especially as part of our job that we're engaged in media. I value people's thoughts, but when it turns to just vitriol and hate and ignorance, gone. Done. Don't need them. Don't need them.
One of my tests for people, and I try to engage on Facebook, and I haven't figured out how to do it well, but that's the workshop for me. And I'm not trying to get into debates, but I'm trying to get into, like, how do I soften your approach? And one of the things, and I haven't figured out the answer to this too, but if you're going to hate Donald Trump, then what's he done well? And if you can't tell me anything, then you've got to deal with your problem because you're not reasonable. If he's literally done nothing well, then I can prove to you one thing, and I'll put it out here for anybody who wants to know. One of the first things he did was sign a bill to extend veteran benefits further and longer. Do you hate that? How can you hate that? You don't want to give him credit for that? Fuck you. He did it. It's a good thing. So if you can't accept that, the problem is not Donald Trump. The problem is you. You have to allow the man a win. And if you can't do that, then I don't need to deal with you. You're not prepared for it. I want to talk to people that are prepared to move.
Yeah, those are people outside of the veteran community too, who I'm not targeting. But again, I always say people want to have an answer to the question, well, how do I support the troops? It's, again, that's not a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
You don't just get to slap that bumper sticker on your car and say, I support the troops. If you do, you have to support that decision by the administration because they're supporting the troops. And whether you voted for that cat or not, that's something good for guys that have given so much and women that have given so much. It's a small thing, and it really is a small thing because they don't get anything. And I think a lot of people don't realize that as veterans. Even these young kids, they do 2-3 deployments in a 4-year time, seeing a ton of combat. They're ripped away from their families, their moms and dads and kids and wives, and they leave the military after 4 years. They can't even go to the PX and buy tax-free soda or beer.
Yeah.
It's just like that's not even a privilege you get. Like, hey, thanks for your service, and even the service says, sorry, you can't come back on base.
Suck
it.
Yeah,
suck it, man. Like, and they try to throw us a bone like, yeah, you can do it, but only online. So like, you got to go to the military version of Amazon that sucks, and it's painful.
Let Amazon just do that business too.
Yeah, Jeff Bezos. Let's get him on the show, and if we can get him on board. But they do a lot of stuff for vets too. So,
sure.
Yeah. So, all right. True confession. This started. I don't know. Did you start this on the show?
No, I think you started it.
Or maybe I coined it. True confession.
Yeah, I maybe teased it out, but you
pinned me down on it. So now I'm paying it back again. Biggest. I'm just going to say biggest fuck up or regret on the Break It Down show. Last 300 episodes, and then I'm going to turn it around.
Fuck up or regret?
Yep.
When I fuck up and I don't
this has got to be a good one. So.
No, these kill me. These absolutely.
These are the ones that you lament about.
There's a percentage of shows that I lose to data gone, and I so respect your time, the guest time, that when I do that, it attacks my professionalism. It attacks my heart. It attacks everything about me. You can ask my girlfriend. It throws me off it absolutely depresses me when that happens. And sometimes it's out of my hands. The technology fails. It still kills me. And so I try to build like triple redundancy safety things, but sometimes I'm too lazy.
So frankly. That's a technical.
But it hurts bad. It hurts bad.
Personal
failure on the Break It Down show.
Or regret.
No, and again, it's the same thing.
Done.
It's when I don't push harder on a guest and they pass away. Because a lot of people are in that zone. And I'm like, well, it's fear-based. Like, I don't want to offend them. It's the same thing earlier. If they're not going to be offended. Like, I want to talk to you. I want to tell your story. Fuck off. Okay, I can take that. But they're not even going to say that. They're going to just ignore me, or their person's going to say, I'm just not doing them right now. And because I am afraid sometimes, I don't do it. And then I'm like, I'd never had the chance to give them that experience. Because I do think that on our show, we don't ask the common question. We ask something special, and we give them a chance to really shine in a new way. And I want to give that to the audience. I want to give that to the guest. So those are regrets for sure when I don't push that extra email or whatever. Is that good?
Yeah. That does weigh heavy. So next 300 episodes, what are you going to do better?
I'm trying to do better at certain social media things. Like I've been meaning to get on Instagram and do a lot better at that. I post, but that's it. It's just super basic. And then I've learned the pathway to be featured on iTunes. And so like that, it leads to money. It leads to more listeners, but I just haven't figured out the logistic steps with my own personal follow through to get it done.
Do you find on social media in this industry, having been the CEO founder, co-founder, and host of your own show, that you have to pay more attention to your own social media than actually following what most people do on social media.
Totally. I wouldn't.
Do you feel guilty about it?
I don't know. I tell when I do it, when I'm in my day-to-day life, I'm like, I'm working right now. I think of it as work.
It's
I
a
have
tool.
to do this. Yeah. It doesn't mean I don't enjoy the people I talk to. They're absolutely my friends, but I have to force myself. It's not my natural inclination. Like normally I want to be the artist. Like I want you to discover me. That's bullshit. Like as an author, you cannot shut up about your book. You have to get as many people as you can saying, holy shit, buy this book. By the way, buy Scott's book, Echo In Ramadi. He's the best-selling author. That doesn't mean anything. Buy it for your friend. It's $20 Jesus Christ. Buy it, give a 5-star rating, and give it to somebody because the book is excellent. It's about life. It's a love story, and everybody should buy it. You should be doing that nonstop. I should be doing that nonstop because we don't create bullshit. We create great things.
Yeah, and that's for guys like us. It's tough, and no one ever accuses soldiers or Marines of being humble in groups, but alone. When people ask us those questions, it's a fine line between sounding gratuitous and slimy, but really you have to do that because if you don't say, listen to this show, or buy this book, it doesn't get listened to. It doesn't get sold. And to use those tools on social media, I'll since I just made you true confession, I feel a little bit of guilt about that when someone will say like, oh yeah, I see what you're doing. You're traveling around. You're doing this. I'm like, I have no idea what you're doing because I'm so consumed by allocating X amount of hours a day to do this, X amount of hours to do writing, X amount of hours to PT and do exercise to maintain, my own sanity, family time, and all the other stuff you got to do. I will say that's a true confession of mine, which is a little bit trite, but I feel a little guilty when sometimes people say that they know more about what I'm doing than but also to manage 20,000 people that are, and some of these people that have like hundreds of thousands of followers. I mean, I guess when you get to that stage, you have people that manage it for you. But when you're your own boss, I mean, both of us sitting here today, we're our own boss. Like, there's no staff. Like my name. I'm
my own staff and boss.
Yeah, my name doesn't end in James Patterson, and yours doesn't. Yours isn't Joe Rogan. Like you got the staffs that do this. I think when you reach that point, maybe. But I think too those types of people lose that connection too, and I really love the connection. I really love coming home from a trip from Italy or Sardinia, and you see my dining room table looks like the warehouse in a post office because people send me books and they want me to sign them, and I think that's validating when you get those emails from the show saying thank you for doing that. It really makes it worthwhile, and I guess that's a balance. When you grow in an industry or you share, I think it's something you have to take into consideration.
And you got to hire out things that anybody else can do, and do the things that no one else can do.
That's great. That's great advice to the earlier question about launching your own podcast. That's genius.
Yeah.
That's good.
Thanks for having me on my own show, man.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to have you on your show. Yeah. No, I'm always honored to be a part of the show, and you and John and Mark and everybody have been crushing it for 300 episodes, and I wish you all the success in the world, brother.